In the gym and in the car, with our advice you could go far. We fuck things up and we make mistakes, and talk about our sexy dates. We host events and go to clubs, but most of all we're still in love. It's getting hard for this to rhyme, just as well 'cause it's bed hopping time.
Hello and welcome to the Bed Hoppers podcast. My name's Mr. H.
I'm Mrs. H.
Thanks for joining us today. I don't know what episode number this is,
No idea.
but I can tell you this is a corker of an episode. It's a
Corker.
cracking one.
Oh, you're doing all Christmas things.
Am I?
You said cracker.
Well, it is.
Cork as well is like festive drinks.
Is it?
Yeah, I had some festive drinks last night,
Did you?
which is one bit slow now. Someone likes to have like two 2 a.m. bedtimes on the bounce.
Yeah.
You. I'm looking at you.
But to be fair, it has been a fun weekend. We've had a delightful weekend with awesome people. And now that we're just slightly paying the price for it, that's all.
Yes, your fault.
Maybe my fault. I might have had something to do with it. But the bottomless brunch was probably one
Bottomless.
of... yes, we did very well.
Yeah.
But it was fun. It was good. But we'll tell you about that another time. Anyway, the thing that I want to talk about today, there's two things I want to talk about, in fact. Two things, I tell you. Two.
Okay.
Not one, but two. The first is Candyland. You can still get tickets to it. We've, at the moment,
not for much longer. It's 80% sold out.
80 mother trucking % sold out.
Not many rooms left.
So this is a hotel takeover and a club takeover, Penthouse Playrooms, right?
17th and 18th of January.
There we go. Ticket links are available in our show notes. But if you're new to the lifestyle, this is a really good means of kind of meeting a whole bunch of awesome people, really good means of kind of
And a
settling
club.
in, and a club, and trying out a club for the first time if that's your jam. But if you're more experienced, it could also be really good for you too, because actually we've got an amazing group of people coming along. There's lots of activities, there's fun stuff, there's room crawls, there's mingles, there's
all sorts.
all sorts of cool things that you can enjoy by coming along to our event.
And probably some 2 a.m. bedtimes.
There may well be I make no commitments on timings of bedtimes, but you can manage your own bedtime probably, right?
Well, you can't.
Well, I can. My bedtime is whenever I feel like going to bed, whereas that's different to your
Drag
idea.
everyone else down with you.
No, I think everyone was happy and enjoying the moment.
All right.
That's what I'm standing by. Anyway, you too can go through that at Candyland and get your tickets now. So there are a limited number available. There are also club tickets available. So if you don't fancy all the stuff that we're putting on, and you really should because it is awesome, you could just come along to the club on that night and get a ticket for that. So you still get to meet all the awesome people. We'll be there. Kate from Wanderlust will be there. So it's a joint event with us lot.
Definitely
Joint event. So come along, get your tickets if you haven't already. And if you've already got your tickets, we'll be opening up the chat group soon. We'll be announcing the hotel soon to all the people. All that good stuff will be happening over the coming weeks. So I'm really excited about this one.
Yeah.
I think we've got some good stuff lined up over the coming weeks. But then we've got an event, like just as you get out over all the Christmas and New Year's stuff and you're thinking, we've got nothing to do. It's boring.
January's
Life
rubbish.
sucks. January's rubbish. We're like, oh my God, we got a fucking event and it's going to be perfect. It's a great way of kicking the shit out of those January blues.
And some more sparkly shoes for you, no doubt.
I'm sure that I will find a way of getting better shoes and sparklier outfits throughout the course of this.
Excellent stuff.
Yes. So the other thing that I wanted to talk about, right? So one of the things that I really love about what we do in terms of the podcast, but in terms of the whole lifestyle experience, the old swinging lifestyle experience, is chatting to people and getting to know them better. I really love finding out about people's journeys, where they've been to, what they're up to, how they got to where they are, who brought this up.
challenges they had.
Yeah, all this kind of stuff. So with that in mind, we're launching like a whole new series of interviews that we're doing with people and getting to know people better. I would call it getting to know you, but I think that's been done to death. But I'm still going getting to know you, all that kind of good stuff. We can, or we can just play the interview jingle, which I think
Oh my God.
is your favourite. So I'm going to try and bring that out of retirement. So we're going to do a series of these. Hopefully you love them. And if you want to take part, get in touch, because it's really fun getting to know people.
And it's all about you.
It's all about you. It's kind of still about me, but it is all about you. So yeah, we're going to play this thing. This is an interview we did this week. I hope you enjoy it. They did a really good job. It's Ruby and Cole.
Yes.
Here we go. Roll the thing.
We've got something that's just for you. Holy shit, it's an interview.
So I'm delighted to welcome to the show today some really lovely people that we've had the pleasure of knowing for around about 3 years now. And we're going
3 years.
About
2
3
years.
2 years. All right. Well, we're trying to date it, but
12 years.
the first time we met these lovely people was at one of our events, which was the Red Hot Party event, which was in Penthouse Playrooms in Luton. And so I'm going to welcome today, we have Ruby and Cole. Welcome to the show, lovelies.
Hello. Should we do our own round of applause?
Yay!
Why not, indeed? Yeah, welcome to the show. It's really lovely to have you on the podcast today. So we're going to be talking to you for a little bit about some things, and I have no notes as usual. So Mr. H, I'm sure, has some wonderful questions to throw your way.
Yeah.
And we'll just make up some as we go along.
Perfect. My first one is
for having us.
Well, you're welcome. Thank you for joining us. We're on the first question. What is the capital of... No. Actually, no.
If you were a sandwich, what flavour would you be?
Oh, don't do that. Someone asked me at a job interview once, if you were a tin of paint, what would be your warning label on that tin of paint?
What, like toxic?
And I was like, I don't get the question. This is... Which...
No one has ever asked me that in a job interview, but I'm going to go with the sandwich filling. If you were a sandwich, what would you be?
If you're an idiot sandwich, what is your form of idiot? That's fine. Anyway, let's go on to the proper question. So what I would like to know, because this is a podcast and people can't see you, how would you describe yourselves, and can you describe each other?
Yes. Do you want me to go first?
You can go first.
Okay, so Ruby is...
You've got a posh voice.
Yeah, sorry. This is my podcast voice, you know. So, yes. So Ruby is my beautiful wife and has been for just over, well, it's a year and a half now, isn't it?
Year and a half.
We've known each other for 11 years, though. Very much.
Together for that.
Been together for 11 years. Yes, she is the rock of our family and wife, I would say, and holds everything together. She's also, if you can be a rock and glue at the same time, she's both those things. And she is the one who first introduced the idea of entering the lifestyle as such.
Are you trying to turn off this posh voice yet?
Am I still very posh?
No, I'm loving it. Go on.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, you're very adventurous. You're very outgoing. You're very open-minded. And I would say you have strong opinions on things, but in a very polite way. And yeah, she's also very beautiful.
What was the question?
Go on.
Something
Try
about
and
paint or
describe
sandwiches,
Cole
I don't
for
know.
us.
Yeah. How would you describe Cole? For people that haven't met him and don't know anything about him, what would you say about him?
Cole is a very empathetic type of person. Anyone can get on with him. Visually, a beautiful shiny head and a lovely Viking beard. In the lifestyle, we're just very free and easy. People easy to get along with. Down to earth, I'd say as well. No sort of pretense or anything like that. But yeah, Cole seems to have, in general life, a lot of friends. Particularly women find it very easy to talk to you and is almost like, best friend to many women. In the lifestyle capacity, very fun. Centre of the party, but not centre of attention.
Excellent. Now you've got to rate each other. I'm not going to do that. That's a terrible thing to do. So you've mentioned that Ruby brought this up in terms of joining the lifestyle. How did you get into it? What was the thought process and how did it all come about?
It was my 30th birthday and we went to Krakow and we were in this really cool, it's like a ship theme. Was it?
Yes.
And we were down in this bar and I just blurted out how I had a fantasy of seeing Cole with other women. And I was kind of embarrassed to say it as I was saying it.
I thought it was very much a trap at this point.
But I did say that, it was a fantasy that was recurring for me over years.
Yeah, I think it's something. So yeah, it was your 30th that it first came up, but it's something you'd been thinking about for a while. Yes, before that.
Yeah. And so, the conversation then developed, even though you were shell-shocked, into, well, should we just test that theory a little bit and go to a strip club? Now, at that point, we'd never been to a strip club. We'd never been to a sex club. None of that. So it was kind of nerve-wracking, but exciting at the same time.
We'd always been, I think, quite adventurous, but with each other. So it was kind of the next step it wasn't like going from 0 to 100, was it? It was kind of like we were already hovering around 50, 60 and just ramped it up.
Yeah. So we just decided to go to a strip club just as a bit of a tester, really. Me seeing Cole physically with 2 other women, would it excite me? Would it be scary? And they gave Cole a bit of a dance, and I was getting very excited, and they asked if I wanted to receive a dance as well. And I was like, no, I'll just sit back and happily watch this. And then it kind of developed from there, really. We started discussing more about our fantasies, desires, and I'd say that you kind of pushed me along gently into exploring and potentially fulfilling a fantasy, which I was scared at the time of. Should it remain in your mind? Should it remain as a fantasy? Because in reality, it might be a disaster. And so it probably took us around 2 years before we actually went on to book onto your event at the Red Hot Party.
It was kind of bad timing in a sense. It kind of coincided with the start of lockdowns and all this kind of thing. So we kind of opened up, I suppose, in the January. And then I think by February to March was when everything started closing down. So that did kind of put the brakes on to a degree as well.
It was time to research as well. And that's when we discovered your podcast as well. And so I probably spent hundreds of hours listening to your podcast from the start. And it really helped us to change our mindset from what is societal norms and to help us come out of that mindset.
One of your first experiences was coming to our events. How did that feel? Going through the door on that?
I feel, not to blow too much smoke your direction, but I think the community that you have created and curated felt very natural to us. We had dipped our toes in other groups, chats essentially, and felt they were all a little bit too overwhelming and fast paced and like, I don't know how explicit we should be, but there was one occasion where we joined a chat for another event, which we didn't end up going to. But it was, as soon as we were in, we were bombarded with people saying, "Oh, you'll be involved in this, that, and the other." And
yeah, it was a bit
too. Well, hang on. So I think coming into the event, having already had the kind of pre-chat with yourselves and the lovely people in your community was very helpful. And yeah, we felt like even though we hadn't really met anyone, that we knew a little bit about the people, which certainly helped ease us in. And I think that really helped us in general just to, kind of realize what we wanted and what we enjoyed.
Yeah. I've got to say, going into the Red Hot Party, there was a great build-up of excitement because the pre-chat was open for several months. And so it was a great way of building connections prior to the event. But it was also massively nerve-wracking and overwhelming too. And to be honest, even to this day now, we do still feel quite overwhelmed going into a huge event night.
I guess it's equal parts excitement and fear, isn't it? Which isn't the worst feeling in the world, but can be a little overwhelming at times.
I always think it's a little bit like going on a roller coaster. You should be a little bit afraid. Like there's nothing wrong with but you also should be excited as well at the same time. Hopefully, that's the theory.
You get your adrenaline and then you get your dopamine fix. So it's all...
I remember though, the first time we went on a roller coaster together.
An actual roller coaster.
And my God, there were tears. Someone was stood there in the line, right? And it was a very quick line going on a roller coaster. We were very fortunate that we went to, I think it was Orlando. I think it was SeaWorld, in fact. And Mrs. H was looking up deaths on roller coasters.
I Googled it in the queue. I don't know why my mind does this, but I was Googling how many roller coaster deaths are there a year. And then I tried to filter it by location, and I was like, oh, I want to see how many people have died on this roller coaster I'm queuing for. And he's like, why are you like this? I'm like, I just
Funnily
need
enough, I
to
think
know.
we googled deaths in sex clubs, didn't we, on our way
How
down?
many people die in a sex club per year?
We're responsible for far more than you'd
Oh
imagine.
God, I hope not. I'm curious, Ruby. So you shared that you had a fantasy that you weren't sure if it should stay a fantasy or become a reality, and I completely relate to that because I think a lot of things that we have fantasy based absolutely are safe. And we're kind of our own gatekeepers in that situation because we're protecting ourselves from something becoming way bigger than we think. And so in fantasy, it's very safe, isn't it? And it's like a sandpit environment. But were you going to the Red Hot Party with a view to exploring that fantasy, or was it still very much locked away in your mind?
We went with more of an open mind. And I think having been part of the pre-chat prior to the event, it helped for us to just go in with an open mind as a couple that we could well play together. But the initial fantasy was more so about me seeing Cole with another woman or other women. It's something that I messaged Secret Stag about prior to the Red Hot Party. And I didn't really know what the terminology was for it, but I almost saw a lot of similarities in their dynamic. And so I had a little bit of advice on it. But going into the Red Hot Party, by the time that we got to that, I think we were already of the same understanding that actually it could be a nicer experience if we do share an experience together.
How would you describe your dynamic now? What are you looking for? So if you're about to go to a club or trawling the sites, what's your advert essentially?
I think we have developed from those early conversations and thoughts into more. We're very much kind of looking for couples rather than like we've never had an experience where it's not been with another couple really. It's more things have developed to points of, yes, Ruby has that fantasy of seeing me with other women, but also
new fantasies.
It's like you want to also be involved in that as well. And I think if you were to just not be involved in any capacity, that might be where the fantasy does creep into kind of the realms of actually
emotional chaos if you're not involved in some way. Yeah.
And I think we're both very much driven by a compersion for each other's enjoyment. So that plays a big part in what we look for. And we like to look for other couples who also are very happy with each other and enjoy each other. And therefore then the four becomes very collaborative and four or more, I should say, becomes very collaborative.
Yeah, I think we've matured in the lifestyle now to a point where we value a strong friendship with other couples first and foremost, and strong connection. I think that helps to build an even better and more exciting experience where everyone feels more comfortable as well. Generally, I think that leads to better success. And I think as well that there is an element of sapiosexuality as well. I think that we need to be mentally connected to other couples as well. And I don't find that we get that necessarily from typical club nights. So we don't just rock up to any given club night without going with anyone. And that's not really the way we go about things. We tend to use club or events like yours as more of a social situation to get to know other people. And then we take from that more of a private arrangement with them.
I think that's fair. And I know a lot of people use it as a similar way. If something happens, great. But if nothing happens, you've had a good night with yourselves and hopefully made some new friends while you're there. And certainly we were talking about this, in fact, just last night. We were sort of talking about going to the clubs and often we're on host duty for these things. But actually it's really nice to get to know people and then kind of go, okay, we like these people. Let's see if we can arrange something outside of the group event where it gets a little bit hectic, for want of a better phrase, and get to know people better and really build those strong connections. I think that's been...
I can totally relate, maybe, to what you're saying about needing that mental connection though. And although there have definitely been moments where we've kind of dispensed with that, and just gone straight for a physical connection. That's rare. And it tends to be more when we're in an environment which is not known to us, such as a holiday or something where we're very remote from our normal habitat, and we kind of go, well, we're here now, so when in Rome sort of thing. But generally speaking, I think, yes, that cerebral kind of connection is really more the preference, and more often than not, we now seek building slow, good foundation relationships with people with a view to then all progressing at the same pace to the next point if we will want to. But yeah, I do completely relate to that approach. It's really, really nice.
Some of our closest friends now in the lifestyle, who are also part of the Bed Hoppers community, we've met them several times, and sometimes on just more of a social meet, getting to know each other, have fun, relaxed, no sort of pressure environment. And that's then led to us being really close friends that we're all in contact sort of almost on a daily basis, really. And then when it comes to arranging and developing that into more of an experience arrangement with them, it's always led to more exciting experiences. And because we all know and respect each other and trust each other as well, I feel that we can explore more and help to create a more comfortable experience for everyone without so many nerves attached.
I think it really reduces the pressure, and I think it also increases the laughs you can have, because sexy times all sorts of shit can happen, right? Let's be fair. All sorts of noises and funny moments, and hopefully not literally. But if you're with good friends, then all of those things they add to the experience for me. They're funny and you can laugh at them, and no one really cares because you're all good friends at that point. So it takes that pressure off for me.
We had I don't know if you want to hear a funny story, but we had a situation where we had met a couple that we had become friends with prior, and we met them at it was kind of like a pub converted into hotel rooms and what have you. And we had a lovely evening with them, a great evening. Our room was in the main building and their room was in the outbuilding. And the door between the two, unbeknownst to us, was locked whilst we were with them. So we tried to get back into the hotel, could not find a way in.
At 2 a.m.
At about 2 a.m. Banging on doors, ringing numbers of night managers, could not get hold of anybody.
You were carrying about a sex bag with all the...
Yeah, I had a room sack full of dildos and vibrators going off. So we ended up where we kind of had to go back to their room and kind of top and tail and sleep on the floor and what have you. And you know, it was slightly awkward, but I think because we built that connection before, it was something we laugh about now and kind of laughed about at the time, really.
Could you imagine though?
Or if it hadn't have gone, or if it was someone we just met and it was random, it's like
awkward.
I think certainly, like you said, it's like the laugh side of it as well, and the connections other than just the sex kind of helps round out the entire experience, definitely.
It does. And I love the point that you made, both of you actually, that you've made friends that you speak to every day. And even if those just remain social catch-ups or daily check-ins or little like conversations at the side that add value to your life in some way, and they don't ever become more than that, or very rarely maybe. And I think that's wonderful. And I really value all those friends and connections that we've sort of attained over the years. And I think they're probably my closest friends. There's always someone there who will, if you need them, they're there, or they'll check in with you or just say hello. And that's amazing. And that's the side of this lifestyle that I never anticipated would be a thing for me.
I think there's a great freedom of like when you can open yourself up to the degree that we tend to in the lifestyle with somebody, it opens up a lot of other doors. Yeah. Where you said to people, you can be a bit more honest with people that you perhaps wouldn't with some of your closest non-lifestyle friends for fear of either upsetting them or
judgment
and thinking you're strange for bringing it up. But there is that openness, I think, which we really like in the lifestyle of just...
Our lifestyle friends are definitely the least judgmental.
Yeah.
people.
Oh, yeah.
And, a lot of regular life, I don't really like to call friends vanilla friends, but, there's certain things that are far too shocking to most people and societal norms. And so there is only one or two of typical life friends that are willing to hear about experiences or references to things that we've got up to, because it's just too much for the typical person. So it's nice that we have those lifestyle friends that we can just be ourselves and authentic and funny and take the mick out of each other. And it's nice. You can be yourself more.
Do you know what? I think people's sex lives are radically improved as well by sharing stories and experiences with like-minded people. Even if they're people you're never going to have sex with, it's good to share things, that the highs and lows of, relationships. Relationships are hard, right? You have to work at them. And, how many marriages kind of break down because, sex either doesn't happen or goes off a boil a bit. And it would be so much easier to just have open conversations about the things that worry you or the challenges that you find in keeping relationships strong. And that can make the difference between not knowing what to do to save your relationship sometimes, and maybe just sharing an experience and gaining some advice and insight from people who won't judge you for having that conversation. And I think that's been incredibly useful as well for people. Just like men particularly don't open up as easily maybe to other people, and it's really good to see those bonds strengthening as well between the male members of our communities who find solace in kind of each other and can support each other, and I think that's amazing too.
Though, talking of bonds, what I really loved is as Cole started this, can I tell you a funny story?
Oh yeah.
Ruby's face dropped for like 10 seconds and you could see what fucking story is he telling now? And it was like, as he started going on, you could see that the Rolodex of emotions going through and her face was like, am I going to have to stab a motherfucker at this point? And then he started, like, we got into the story and she's like, oh, this is funny. So he may proceed at this moment.
I do the same with you, to be fair. You start reeling off stories. I think, oh my God, what's he going to come up with now?
I don't know half the time.
Which story is it?
This is the
Am I going to look
thing.
like an absolute wally? No, who
it's
knows?
normally me that looks like an arsehole.
Actually, to be fair, it is normally you.
Normally is. Because I tend to speak without thinking so much. But, which kind of leads me wonderfully into my next scribbled note, which is, what have you learned about yourselves in this adventure? Have you learned anything you didn't know before?
Yeah, I think we've learned we are very much people pleasers in general, and I think we've learned that sometimes it is okay to be a little bit more selfish in terms of, yes, there are things that we enjoy, things we don't enjoy, and there comes a point, certainly in the lifestyle, where you certainly shouldn't go along with things to please others. That's not to say, obviously, there's times and there's things where, you pushed your boundaries slightly and you work around those. But I think just to be, a bit more sure of ourselves in general, and not to overthink how other people might interpret how we are.
And perceive.
Rather just be ourselves. And if people gravitate towards that, that's great. And if they don't, well, that's up to them. That's no problem either. Not to say do we have to please everybody.
I think in a typical environment, pre-lifestyle, me and Cole have always been very connected. We'd go on a date night and have a dance together on the dance floor. And we would often attract other people's attention just for how connected we were, and didn't really give a shit either. But in the lifestyle, we can be more truly ourselves without judgment from other people. And I think another point to add for me of what have I learned since being in the lifestyle is that being more true to myself as well, and that finding that and being honest with myself that I am bisexual, and having had experiences, which is something that I've always had in my mind since being a teenager, that I thought I was bisexual, but it's always something that I suppressed. And I think possibly part of the initial fantasy of seeing Cole with other women was partly my attraction to other women as well. But it took for us to get into the lifestyle and to continue with communicating with each other openly and honestly about what we'd like to pursue, experience, and for us to actually quite comfortably now describe myself as bisexual to vanilla friends as well. So it's opened many doors for us on a personal level as well, and just knowing who we are.
I think kind of connected to that slightly as well is yes, we've always been good communicators, I feel, but just never to presume what the other person is thinking or feeling either. Like, I know just connected to that where you've talked openly about being bisexual is I think maybe presumed that Ruby knew that I was okay with that. And looking back, I can see how that could be interpreted as me not communicating about it and not really wanting her to pursue that. Whereas in actuality, I'm very happy with that and happy for her to explore that side of things, where I think you had it in your head perhaps that I would maybe go along with it, but you were perhaps holding yourself back slightly because for fear of upsetting me, whereas that was never a possibility. But just to keep the communication open, but also to keep reiterating and going back that you think you may have covered something, but you maybe necessarily haven't.
Yeah.
It's always a learning journey as you're going along, and you always discover new things, I think. Mm-hmm. What I'm curious to understand, so we talked a little bit about what have you learned about yourselves. What have you learned about other people?
In terms of people outside of the lifestyle, I think I've realized that our situation, our relationship is less normal than I thought it was. Like, again, we've always communicated and always been quite free. But I think as we've got more into the lifestyle, we've realized that more people outside of that perhaps don't keep that communication open and would not talk to each other, but they would, I don't know what's the term, almost like, it's not nice to be in a free environment with people, like-minded people. And I think that is less normal in normal society than I think we perhaps thought it was.
I think that the majority of couples we find, I say majority, in the lifestyle are probably the strongest and most connected couples there are in society altogether. And I think they have to be strong and emotionally connected and good communicators with each other for them to be successful in the lifestyle. And I think everyone around us in typical society who we know in our personal lives, it's very clear to us that there's certain lack of communication. We've had a few friends recently that have separated, and a lot of it has been down to communication, pure and simply. And it's a shame that they don't feel the ability to communicate properly with each other.
There's couples that would tell us things individually where we're friends with both sides of that couple that would speak to us, but then they would not speak to each other about. And it's to us, that's quite an alien concept of like, well, if you can tell, we're friends, but if you can tell us, why can't we tell the person that you're supposed to be the most connected with?
Yeah, that's a really, really good point, actually. And it's really interesting what you find out about other people as you go through this, not just yourselves. But I have a question now for you both. What have you found to be the main challenges so far with lifestyle?
I think being able to, it's not always easy in the moment to understand how each other is feeling at any given time. So just to take that opportunity to step back and realize that it's not a race. There's no rush. You can step back. You can check in with each other. Yeah. And you can do that as discreetly or as openly as you need to, because if the people that you are with are the right kind of people, that they're going to understand that and be probably doing the exact same thing as you are. But I think just to get to that point of being able to do that is important. I think certainly in the early days, there's been a couple of instances where we have had miscommunications at events. So like, for example, at the first event we were at, there was a situation where somebody entered themselves into a situation which we were particularly comfortable with. And then that caused conflict between us individually, which...
Should I elaborate on that?
Of course.
So there was a pre-Red Hot Party group chat for several months before the event. And there was a particular person that was quite authoritative or considered herself to be, and wanted to orchestrate a mass orgy, to which we were quite clear at the time that We didn't want to be part of that as such, and that we were new. However, it turned out that at the Red Hot Party, we ended up in our first sixsome, which was quite a shock, but it was fun and it felt natural because it was with people that we had a strong connection with. But this particular person who had tried to orchestrate a much larger orgy had just brought herself into the room where we all were and without consent just helped herself to Cole. I won't go into more explicit details, but that was quite a shocking moment for us. And it was very difficult because we'd never been in a situation before where we'd had to say no. But it was also shocking because the community and everything that we'd learned up to that point was highly driven around consent, and there wasn't consent there. So I think that was one of our biggest challenges, and is something that we've had to learn how to deal with and basically have some balls to deal with the situation there and then if it makes you uncomfortable or is likely to make you have issues in your own relationship afterwards. So it's just learning to say no.
It was a situation that, looking back, could have been easily rectified at the time, and I think now we certainly would. But yeah, at the time it was a very much a learning curve of, okay, we need to talk about this, we need to learn from this.
It made us.
We had and we did.
It's grown us.
Can I ask what you would do differently now with that challenge then? So you've talked about what actually happened and how you dealt with it over time, and that caused you to retreat a little bit and regroup as a couple, which was right. But what would you do differently now?
I heard he carries a fly swatter with him at all times. Get back, foul demon! Thwack, thwack.
I think I'd like to hear how you deal with it now, but I know how I deal with it.
I feel a lot more capable of being able to just say no and read the situation, and I don't fear that saying no to somebody anymore. I think looking back, I've been perhaps quite limited in terms of sexual partners previously, and it was never I've never really been in a situation where like lifestyle or otherwise where I've had to handle that. So I think just in terms of personal growth of being able to, I don't fear rejection for myself. I've put myself out there. That's absolutely fine. What's the same the other way of just being able to reject somebody else? It feels a lot easier now than it perhaps did. I think also in terms of how we handle things within the lifestyle now as well. We're never necessarily in that situation now anyway.
No, we don't put ourselves in that vulnerable situation as such because we don't typically.
So we maybe, try and avoid that anyway. But but things happen, and, it's perfectly reasonable to think something like that may happen again. So yeah, I just feel a lot more comfortable and confident to be able to.
If we were in that situation again and we were in a club setting or an event, etc., and someone completely unknown to us just shows up in the room that we're in with other people, then I would be more confident in saying, excuse me, sorry, this isn't really an open situation where you can just come in and join in.
I feel like we have done that a couple of times. We have been in situations where other people have tried to come into situations like that we haven't necessarily known, and we've cleared it.
Yeah, I think you guys mentioned on one of your recent podcasts as well that it is a difficult situation to navigate when you think that you're about to enter into an experience with all consenting people involved, and then a curveball is thrown and someone else rocks up and, you're not comfortable with it. So it's difficult for everyone, no matter how far into the lifestyle you are. But you've just got to be brave, but respectful at the same time. And I think, they should also respect consent and boundaries too.
I agree. What I found really fascinating with our experiences, our ability, whilst, the experience itself can go in a number of different ways, but what happens afterwards, sort of understanding of it in our talk through it, is much more effective as we've gone on. So there's much less damage to our relationship. Not that there's ever been any true damage to it, but it's our ability to talk through it and be less upset. And we've kind of gone, okay, this was it. This is what was the problem. Why did this go wrong? And what we're going to do in the future about it. And our ability to work through that. And it sounds like you folks are on a very similar page. You're very effective at kind of going, oh, okay, this happened. That was shit. How do we deal with it in the future? But it takes time to get into that space. And like your first event, going into that and that happening is like, oh, that's quite tricky. But, several events and being a little bit more battle hardened down the line, and you encounter more things as you go along, your ability to kind of take it on board, kind of go, well, actually, it's not your fault, and it's not your fault, and this is what the problem is, much better. And I really appreciate that about that experience coming to hand. So even if something crops up for us, I'm very confident that we can weather a storm out the back of it. Unless one of us really, really fucks up, but that's not really happened for a while. So look forward to that day and seeing testing the waters.
Which one of us will fuck up though?
Probably both of us. It is us after all.
I feel we're more equipped, definitely, to deal with things as they bounce up now. So.
You're equipped. You're essentially packing with the solution. Definitely, that's what's going on here. So what I would like to know is, so you've been doing this for a little while. You've had some interesting challenges. You've learned to sort of talk it through. What advice would you give to people that are looking to join the lifestyle? And the answer cannot be communicate, because every fucker says this.
They all do. And it's a very good one, but let's assume that is like a given.
Yeah, let's assume people will learn how to do that.
And I think my advice would be, if somebody who's coming into it new, would be just to kind of do your own thing, find your own people. Don't feel like there is a set way of doing this, because there isn't. There's a million different people who have a million different dynamics, and what is right for them isn't going to be right for you. So don't be intimidated or feel like you're doing something wrong or you're not doing things the right way because somebody else does it a different way. That would be my number one advice, I guess, because I feel like, certainly myself, before we did anything, I felt quite intimidated by the whole thing of like, oh, we're going down this road and this means X, Y, Z. Where actually, no, it doesn't. It's our own journey, if you will, through a bit. And there's no end goal either. There's nothing that, I don't think there's any point where we will fully understand who we are and what we are in the lifestyle, because things will change and adapt and you will learn as you go. So I don't feel that there's anything we're aiming towards of being able to say, okay, this is us, because you're almost kind of back to square one at that point. You're back at the point where you entered the lifestyle. So
can I add to that as well? I think that when we first got into the lifestyle, because of how scared we were about going into the unknown, we kind of created a bit more of a persona or an alter ego, or shall we say. And this alter ego allowed us to get into a mindset of lifestyle. It was still us, but it was a more confident version of ourselves, a ramped up version. And it did help us to navigate those early days of being in an atmosphere which was quite intimidating. If I could do things again differently, I would just say from the start, just be yourself and be authentic to who you are. Stick to who you are as well, and don't adapt yourself to fit in with another crowd or group of people. That you put in you.
Find you.
Yeah, your own relationship boundaries as well. You need to stick to that rather than conforming to other people's wishes or groups or anything of such. So to just stay who you are, and you will find your tribe naturally anyway, without trying to be someone or a couple that you're not.
And kind of within that, like you mentioned, boundaries there is, yes, boundaries are, I think, essential. Certainly, that should be the conversation you have before doing anything, is like, what are you comfortable with? What are you not comfortable with? But also understand that those can change and will change over time. There's things that were hard-nosed from us that have happened organically and we've been okay with and enjoyed. And so just, yes, go in with expectations of what you want, but don't be afraid to explore within that as well, as long as you're comfortable and happy to do so.
Yeah.
Such sage advice. And I'm glad you didn't just opt for communication. You're absolutely right. Must communicate. No, I like the one where you're sort of like don't try and fit someone else's parameters, because you need to. Yeah, you don't have to be a blueprint of someone else's success. You create your own, don't you?
I think there's so many sub-communities within the community as well. There's thousands, and there's so many labels. We don't typically like to conform to labels, although we see the importance of them to some people. But there's so many kinks, fetishes, polyamory, swinging. There's so many different parts of the community. You just need to find your place within the community, and don't be afraid to explore others as well, because you never know if one of the other subsections might actually be for you as well.
And it's never too late to explore that. There's things we've talked about that perhaps we'd like to explore more that we haven't at this point, but that those are still open, whether you're in it for a week, a month, 10 years, however long. It's things are always changing and adapting, so
I will get you in a cage at some point.
Wife, you have a question.
I have another question. So talk us through what would be your ideal date.
Let's go.
interesting. When you start, I'll
I think that we've had an ideal date, actually, with some close friends, well, who are close friends now. We wanted to, it was the first time for us as well, we wanted to go and meet a couple with all of us of the same understanding that we are just meeting for a social. And so we met up in Manchester, went for food, went for drinks, listened to some music, got to know each other. And we took them to a really groovy little bar. It's one of the Manchester hidden bars. I don't know if we can say what it is, but either way, it has quite a sex positive theme to the bar anyway. So it was a really nice place to take another couple to on a date. And we got to just know them at a really gentle pace. But that way we could really build the mental connection, the physical connection, getting to know each other on even, a bit of an emotional level as well. And that for us, all of those elements creates a much more exciting prospect of meeting them again in the future. So like we had with them, then arranging a date to meet them again was really exciting. And that there was a lot more build up to that as well. So I think for us, we really value getting to know people first before meeting them for anything else further.
Yeah, I think good food, drinks, lots of opportunities to, sorry to use the word, but to chat and communicate, as it was. Yeah, just we're a very easy, cheap date as well. We don't expect the full works, just somewhere nice and friendly, somewhere where you can hear over the music to actually have a conversation.
So long as they serve a nice margarita.
Oh yes, there you go. That's important.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say we're kind of low maintenance in terms of we wouldn't expect to be going anywhere particularly fancy or anything. Just a chance to kind of, because should we tell a story of our first date as well together, which kind of ties into this, because our first date was about 9 hours long. That was most
wow.
just
Well, we haven't got 9
drinking.
hours, but we can certainly spare.
We kind of, I suppose we started the wrong way, didn't we? And have carried on since then. So
yeah, just to summarize that, we got to know each other for about 6 weeks first before physically meeting. And then by the time that we got to our first date, we didn't want to separate, and it ended up being a 9-hour first date. And so I think we value that when we're dating other couples as well. 9 hours.
Minimum expectation of ideal date then, 9 hours.
9 hours, one margarita per hour at least.
That makes it even harder though when everyone has children and other commitments to work around as well. That's a big obstacle for us. We only managed to actually get involved in anything lifestyle maybe every quarter, every couple of months. So yeah,
definitely with you on the being able to hear people on a date. That's like key for me. The number of dates we've gone on where I've not been able to hear shit because we're in a loud bar. I want to be able to hear it. So.
That's because somebody needs to get their hearing sorted.
No. It's because we play music too loud in venues.
Definitely. It's not because you're getting on at all.
Yeah, it's true. I'm with you on that, Carolyn, because we were out last night and someone was talking to me. I could not tell a word they were saying. I'm trying to lip read and I can't lip read. And I just ended up walking away embarrassed that I can't tell what they're saying.
So our final question for you. So room 101.
Oh, I love room 101.
You do, because you like knowing what people hate. What, lifestyle wise, what are you going to throw in the bin? What gets chucked out? What behavior, what thing would you like to see disposed of? And you can come up with one each. It doesn't have to be an agreement on it, as long as it's not each other, obviously, because we wouldn't accept.
That's a very good question.
I know, because I've got too many answers.
Me too.
You
I've
can
always
give a
got loads
top
of things.
3 if you want. If that makes you feel better, you can chuck 3 in there each. We'll call it room 303.
The top one for me is arrogant people who go about the lifestyle as though they have some sort of entitlement.
I think that's like in general, but amplified in the lifestyle, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. And I just wish that there were a little bit more respect generally in the lifestyle, respect for each other, respect of boundaries and consent, and also not shaming anyone for any of their likes and desires.
For a slight moment, I thought you said not shaving anyone.
I did as well.
I was like, well, that's a very specific request.
Well, it could be in someone's
We've never
101.
shaved anyone yet, but, there's still time.
Have you got any?
I think there can be an over-reliance on alcohol being involved. Like, yes, we drink to relax and things, but I think some people do take that a little forward to the point where, then lines of consent and such are blurred and people get it. That maybe ties into like arrogance and things like that, where people expect things or need to drink to have a good time to get themselves into the mindset of what they're doing, at which point, why are you even doing it?
Yeah. I tell you what, I have got one little bugbear of the community in general. And you see it a lot on like Fab, although I despise Fab. Much more of a fan of Swinghub. But you see it on all the platforms, and there are a lot of couples who have bi-curious females, and they will say something along the lines of, I really want to try out my first experience and my husband watch. And that just, to me, is so offensive. It's objectifying women, but also I would never want to be someone's, I want to try it out with you.
Don't want to be an experiment.
Don't want to be someone's experiment. And I think women themselves who say that they want to experiment, there's a better way to go about saying it than it's just offensive to me that they can objectify another bisexual female in being an experiment.
Oh my God, I 100% agree with you. It's like I could go on for days about this subject, and I won't. Maybe 9 hours if you've got spare.
No.
If you fancy a date one day. But I completely resonate with this. And another thing that probably grinds my gears on that particular subject is when there's an expectation that just because you're bisexual, you will be open to any kind of female encounter or experience. And you're like, well, hang on, whether you're straight or bisexual or gay or whatever you identify as, it doesn't mean you automatically fancy someone or want to have sex with someone. Why should it be the case that if you're bisexual, you're going to get it on as women in that particular experience? And furthermore, you're going to be, objectified as a spectacle, so men can sit around and watch that. I'm like, come on, really? There's you're really kind of abusing the emotional connections that I value with women so that you can use that as your experiment. Like,
yeah.
Something about the...
I think we have...
No,
go for it.
I was going to say, I think we've never experienced this directly, but we do have friends where they have came out as bisexual to family and other friends, and their responses to the male of that relationship, oh, are you okay with that? How are you feeling about that? And it's like, you're still the same person as you were. It's just, another part of you. It's not.
Yeah, it's almost as though the female needs almost permission from the male. And obviously we do it in some degree communication in the lifestyle, but it's putting the emotional judgment on the male counterpart of that relationship. Are you okay with that your wife is bisexual or she's come out as bisexual?
Almost the assumption that it makes them more likely to stray, if you will, because of that.
Oh, you've got double the threat now.
Yeah, it's like, no, it's still the same. It's just...
Well, it's interesting because when people come out as bisexual and they're in relationships, then there often comes the question of monogamy and whether they're monogamous or non-monogamous. And it's often assumed that they are non-monogamous or they're cheating in some capacity. And that's been something, certainly we've talked about this. So I'm heavily involved in our LGBTQ plus stuff at work, as is Carolyn. And as identifying as bisexual, certainly as you do, and as friends do, it does inevitably go, well, you're married. What does that really mean for you? Are you repressing those feelings, or are you off seeing other people? Are you seeing those other people legitimately, or is it illegitimately, i.e. cheating? And it creates a whole raft of other conversations and questions. And as a result, I think there is a reticence to talk about bisexuality out there because it does open up a whole load of other doors. And certainly the thing that really winds me up is when women are like, oh, let's do it for the boys, because I get nothing from it. Like watching Carolyn with another woman, I'm like, it's like watching and I've said this before, like watching your friends play Super Nintendo. When do I get to play with a controller and have a go playing Mario World or whatever it is? And like, it's great that you're having a nice time, but like doing it for the boys is just like assuming that I'm going to get a kick out of it. I know lots of people do, but it's that assumptive behavior.
Yeah.
And
very performative as well.
Very performative. And actually, if you're going to be doing it, Mrs. H, then I want you to do it because you have an attraction to that person and you want to.
Yeah, I don't be watched by you on the sidelines tapping your watch and come on. No,
I get that, and that's that. It's an interesting one. And the last thing you'd want probably is for me to performatively like play with another guy. Although you'd probably like it for like for the duration, and then she'd feel bad about it. Like, oh, why did I make you do this? And then she's like, I have this on video forever.
I want theatrics.
Yeah. Sign up to our OnlyFans now and bye. Literally, it's not a thing. But it is a bit strange that people see these things in that way, and that it's such an interesting angle on bisexuality. But it's And for the work thing, it's so funny because as soon as you talk about it, there is an assumption of, like with all bisexuality, there's like greediness, there's the monogamy, there's but you must prefer one, you got to pick one, all that sort of stuff comes out in the wash. And it's really not the case. But that's, hence, normalizing this whole thing. We if we can't normalize bisexuality yet, what chance do we have normalizing ethical non-monogamy in any shape?
We're not normal people, and we're proud of it.
What is norm? What's normal?
And that's all we want to do. We want to just normalize all this and not it be someone's dirty little secret, because I'm not shameful about what I do or the people I like.
I've seen what you do. It's terrible.
I'm not ashamed of any of the things that I enjoy doing and the amazing relationships I have with other people. And so I don't want it to be someone's perception that my reality is a clandestine, shameful, seedy kind of thing that needs to be shunned by society. And so that's why we do this. That's why we open up dialogues with people, every day if we can, just to kind of make those topics less taboo and normalise things like this so they don't have to be kept in the dark and we don't have to be shunned. So here endeth my TED Talk. Thank you for coming.
Thanks for joining.
Very good TED Talk.
Join us for the next 9-hour session. So I did lie. There are in fact 2 more questions for the penultimate one is, do you have any questions for us? And that's okay if you don't, but we're here if you want to ask.
I got a question for you. So I've been following your journey on the podcast. And as you know, I sent you an email when you first started to explore solo dating, which was a really interesting subject. It's not necessarily my interest because we want to do solo dating, but I find it very interesting in how other couples are navigating solo dating. It can be a sensitive topic. So you have developed with more solo dates. How are you currently getting on with your solo dating adventures?
You can answer that first. You can answer it first.
All right. That's a good question. Thank you. So I'm fairly confident that Mr. H would share the view that I have, which is that we don't intend to make this something regular, feature weekly or monthly, or it's not a prescriptive, we are going to do this frequently. I think it's presented us with the opportunities to explore dynamics outside of our couple experiences and give us both something that we probably can't achieve together. And the first one of those, absolutely is going to be me wanting to have more opportunities to connect physically and emotionally with women. And the issue of bisexuality that we've literally just talked about extensively is a really good one, because that's what I seek from a solo date experience. It's the opportunity to spend time with women in a dating capacity where I'm not worrying about what Mr. H is thinking, doing, feeling, not worrying about time constraints of have I spent too much time, kind of not with the four of us, if that's what we're doing. So I am very much not intending to suppress the bisexual tendencies I have. That's not something that's going to go away. But I also don't want Mr. H to feel like that's the primary thing that I seek. It's really not. But having the solo dates has given me the opportunity to explore that without having to worry so much about what's happening in that moment. And the reason I want him to experience similar things and have solo dates is because I also want him to have a different kind of experience, a different kind of encounter with people. And I'm actually really happy that he can do that. And I don't need feeding all the images and the pictures and, the minute by minute, what are you doing, where you go, how are you getting on. I don't need it. I'm just happy that he's happy, and I'm happy that he's having a good time, and I'm happy to reconnect when he comes back and maybe share that in a different way. So I think they're going well from that perspective. But what I don't want them to be is something that we have a preference for doing over the shared experiences, because that remains something that I value more.
Yeah.
That's quite a long-winded answer, but they're going great. I'd like more of them, but not so many that they overshadow what we do as a couple. Does that make sense?
It does. So I think you're right. I think it stemmed from the fact ultimately, and we talked a bit about it on the show, that women are a finite resource when it comes to us playing with a couple, in that there is an element of, well, everyone tends to want to play with that other lady, broadly speaking. And as a result, there's less time for us all to enjoy that person. And I think that kind of you'll want to play with them, but also you'll want to play with the guy as well, has meant that you weren't able to explore stuff as much as you'd like. Yeah. So hence why this whole thing came up. I think we've had a couple of solo dates each now. Mm-hmm. And we've played it relatively safe with people that we know and that we trust. I think that will continue to be the thing. I think emotionally, I think we would both struggle if we were to look for completely new people that we have no connection with. Mm. I think that would, certainly for my fragile little brain, it would be like I would be panicking that there would be a lot more emotions developing and that it would be much more akin to a relationship rather than a sexual exploration. And I think the same would be true of you as well,
I don't
wife.
want you to go out and get to know somebody exclusive away from me, if that makes sense. I'm happy that he already knows them and that I already know what the relationship is. That makes sense.
Do you feel like that would cross into polyamory and that's where you don't want to go? Or
I think, yeah, and I think from a separate perspective of having these different adventures, I think that would probably be a bit too much towards that. I think when it comes to couples that we've developed those relationships with, we're a lot more comfortable in that grey space in between swinging and polyamory. And we seem to find a lot of comfort there. And even, I'd even argue that most of our relationships that we have aren't probably truly swinging ones. They're probably somewhere in between those two bits. Poly-light, swinging plus, whatever you want to call it, in that space. And I think that's where we get, like you say, the developed relationships. And that feels a little bit more than just regular turning up and sticking your dick in someone type stuff, to be so crude. But I think the relationship is the bit that we really care about.
Yes, it is. Yeah, but I don't want him to go and find new relationships that I'm not part of, because it's never what we set out to do together. Not where we have a mission statement particularly.
Well, I think
we don't want to separate so much that we're finding new relationships that the other's not part of.
Tend to be very risk averse, I think.
We protect our relationship.
Try and protect the relationship as much as we can. So that's kind of where we're sat. Yeah. I think we started talking the other day about maybe looking for another date, and whether that's with same people or someone different, we haven't quite figured that out. The difficulty is that Carolyn is less motivated to go and find people. So, and doing any of the, what I traditionally call fabmin, but the looking for people, the hunters, whatever you want to call it, the going on and doing all that, less inclined to do it. I'm more inclined to do it, but as a single person would have much less success. So there is that sort of, we both have a hill to climb to get at the end of it. But in terms of experiences, it's been really fun. We've enjoyed it. We've certainly found that I think we initially certainly came in with a bit of is the hot wifey sort of hot husband route what we want out of it? And that's not really the thing, because you don't tell stories. And this isn't a slagging session for you, Mrs. H. You don't tell stories.
No, I can't, you're right.
You can't tell stories, and you don't get anything from the stories that I give you.
Not really, no.
She wants like a bullet point, what happened? Well,
I'm more interested in what they had to eat.
Yeah, and then...
Did you have a nice meal? Tell me what you had.
Strangely more jealous about the roast potatoes that I've eaten than anything else.
Yeah.
So yeah, there is that, and that's certainly been a learning. Whereas I'd like a little bit more detail, a little bit more information.
But you're not turned on by the fact that I'm going out and having experiences with women, though, are you?
The challenge, I'm not turned on by the fact that you're going and doing it, but equally, I wondered if it might be nice to hear about it in a sexy way.
You'll never know.
But I will never ever know that joy. But what I have found out is that I'm pretty good at doing that for other people. At least I think I am. So I'm quite good at creating like a narrative or presenting it back in terms of, oh, look what I'm doing with your wife. This is sexy, and this is what we're up to, and isn't this naughty, and look at this picture and look at that. That I'm a natural person at telling stories, but they might take 9 hours, which is probably good for you folks. But so that I enjoy that aspect. So I didn't know whether I would enjoy it back. But what it's transpired is that I'm never going to get that back anyway. So I might as well just like put my big boy pants and grow on and live with the fact that that's not going to be the case. Is that fair?
It's very fair. It is very fair. But what I like to add to that is I do get something from the thought of Mr. H going out on these solo dates.
Is it peace and quiet?
Peace and quiet, absolutely. I can have what I'm telling you. If only I could make it work. But the point is... I love the concept of what he's doing. So he gets ready, he goes out. I like the fact that I'm in his frame of reference at that point, to the point when he leaves, and he's very attentive to, we're not doing the same thing tonight, and I love you, and this is all. We're very connected until we're not, and then I'm left with my thoughts, and I find being left with my thoughts and my own imagination to be probably far more of a turn on than the being fed the reality of what's happening, if that makes sense. I don't need the feed. I really don't want to see it, because actually it may not match up to what's in my head anyway. But I am quite excited by the thought of, I wonder what he's doing, I wonder how it's going. I bet they're doing this now. But because I don't see it, I'm like, okay, well, I'll just have to imagine that. And that's exciting. That's fine. Whereas if I'm fed the reality, I might think, oh no, maybe that's not what I had in my head. And maybe that's kind of changed my perception of reality that's happening. And so I'd rather be left with the thought of, I think I know what might be happening, and I'll never know. But that being said, I don't want to be completely ignored. So I'd like a little bit of information, like, we're now going somewhere
You like we're having our meal now. This is a picture of our meal. And she's like, oh, great, that looks wonderful. We're now going to like the fun activity.
Fine. At least I know you're safe. I know you're going to next stage. I'm like,
and
cool.
You like that sex will begin shortly. And then she like it's like the sex has done now. Sex is done. It is over.
I also don't want to be part of that. That's your experience. I don't want to be the one going, oh, hang on, I'm over here. Where's my picture? I don't want to interrupt your vibe and spoil that, because I think I want you to have that experience for what it is and not have to worry about the fact that I'm there going, where's my fucking picture? Come on. I don't want you to interrupt your great experience to deliver something that I need to see. I don't know. Just have a good time. I'm happy.
Yeah, I think I was just making the point really that it's really interesting to see how you're both navigating something that's quite a new, possibly scary experience for you both to go through, and how do you handle it and trying out different ways.
I think that's relatable to anyone going through it's not dependent on the situation, isn't it? It's everyone's navigating something, so there's valuable lessons in whether it's people want to pursue what you're doing or not. There's still a lot to gain from it.
I think that your support network, you are obviously very close friends with Secret Stag and Secret Vixen, and the way that they could support you is give you some tips of how they might like to receive the information, but that is coming from more of a hot wife dynamic and how they like to receive that information, but that might not necessarily be the right way for you.
Agreed. And I think that's been one of our takeaways, and the way we've seen it work with close friends has been very much a hot wife sort of angle, and
probably not.
And it isn't that isn't what we're doing.
As much as it's great to be, I understand the comfort of having soul dates with people that you are both familiar with, and I completely get that and understand that. And I don't know if there's a right or wrong answer to it, but I do wonder how you would feel if it was kind of somebody outside of that pre-existing dynamic that you have, if your experiences of solo dating would be significantly different one way or another, or you would get a different experience from it being with someone who isn't in your kind of immediate social group.
I 100% agree. And I think that's the risk of it, I think, for us. And I think that's the bit where we test whether we break a little bit doing that. Like it's good to be scared a bit.
Good to feel something.
It's like the roller coaster analogy. I think it would be for us looking at people that are slightly beyond the immediate circle, but that we know and feel comfortable with is probably where we want to get to. But whether we do that or not is, there's a whole load of stuff that we'll need to sort of talk through to get into that safe space.
A bit further down the line.
But and literally people a bit further down the line as well, So
bloody far away as well. Anyway, I digress. Right.
So the final question.
Final question.
Final thing.
For their wife.
And thank you for that question. That was really thoughtful. Yeah. And I would have put money on you asking that.
I would.
I would have done. I was like, I was like, she's never replied to that email that I sent back. So I think she's got some further points to add. Anyways, so the final question is...
It's hard to ask without kind of, it's from an absolute no judgment at all on how you navigate things. It is just a genuine interest in general and interest in you two as a couple. So that's where it comes from. So I guess we just didn't want it to seem like there was any kind of judgment or,
That's all right. If you ever have a spare 9 hours, we'll catch you up.
No, well, the thing is...
Well, we're 8.5 hours into this podcast. So,
well, the thing is any question like that, I don't mind, because it's talking about myself, which is, of course, my favourite topic. So I have no qualms answering anything. But my final question is, if people wanted to find you, do you want to let them know? Are you on Swinghub? Are you on Fab? Or do you want to keep quiet and remain mysteriously out there?
Yeah.
We are a little harder to find than we were at one point. But yes, we're still...
Yeah, so we no longer have Twitter or X. We used to be faces out on that, and so that's had to go. And so now we are on Fab, although I don't really like it, so don't bother sending us a message on that. And Swinghub as RubyandCole.
Fantastic. I just want to say a huge thank you for coming on the show, for answering honestly, for looking fabulous, for being great guests. And
you're welcome,
thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Right, you're very welcome. I'm just talking to myself now in the little.
Was, yeah.
Thank you. You're the best, Mr. H.
Well done for turning up again.
I think when Ruby mentioned about us potentially, speaking to you, I think my initial response was, I don't know how much we'd have to talk about, but
Turns out quite a
time
lot.
has flown by, and it's been really good.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Well, I am a big fan as well. I've listened to all of your episodes.
Oh yeah, huge fan.
You probably
But I
do
thought we
some
might-
kind of certificate by now.
Yeah,
surely.
you need some bed hopper points. We'll give you some.
I need a big badge.
That was badge.
But yeah, no, it was really fun to be interviewed by you guys and get to know you a bit more. But also, yeah, I think it was just.
It's nice to speak to you outside of the environment that we would usually see you, where you obviously have other some responsibilities and priorities, and you need to spread your time wisely and evenly. So yeah, nice.
Yeah, hopefully we weren't, boring guests. So hopefully we're good enough to make the cut.
I can't imagine anyone would listen to you and think you're boring.
Not at all, folks.
Wonderful.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
So I just want to say a massive, massive thank you to Ruby and Cole for being such wonderful guests on the show.
They were tremendous.
They were tremendous. They were very entertaining, very eloquent. I enjoyed what they said very much.
Yes.
Some pokey questions. It was good. I think this is a goer in terms of a regular feature. Probably, maybe. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, when you said pokey questions, I was thinking there weren't any Pokemon questions.
No, there are no Pokemon questions. There was not like, what is your favourite Pokemon?
Maybe I'll weave that into future interviews.
What is your favourite Pokemon?
I don't have a favourite.
You've got to pick one. All the others are going to die. You can only save one. Who are you going to save?
Oh my God.
Which Pokemon?
I do like a Zigzagoon.
A Zigzagoon.
He's not like one of your regular up there favourites, like the starters, like Pikachu and Bulbasaur and Squirtle. He's not one of the mad popular ones. But I just like him. He darts around. He's hard to catch. He's really cool. He's a little raccoon. And his Galarian form is very pretty as well. So I like a Zigzagoon.
There we go, folks. You heard it here first.
He's not my favourite, but I do.
Who is your favourite?
I don't have a favourite.
Well,
I love them all equally.
Do you though?
Yeah.
Even the ones that are like Binachu and Lightatron.
I mean, I don't
and-
like a Weedle. No one likes a Weedle. That's just like, shouldn't even exist.
Is that just a worm with a?
It is correct.
Yes.
It is a worm.
It was one of the original ones, wasn't it?
Oh, stupid. It's just pointless.
Doesn't it evolve into something?
Get it out of
A bigger worm?
bin, Niantic. It does evolve into a bigger thing. Again, worm related. Don't like it. Forget it.
Much exciting. Anyway, join us next time round for another fantastic interview. We've got another great one lined up that we're in the process of editing. We've already recorded it. This is how amazingly on the ball we are for this week only. Don't worry, we were planning to do more. We haven't got any more in the diary yet, but we will do very soon. And we'll share them with you. So if you liked it, let us know. If you hated it, I'm sorry.
Don't let us know.
Just don't let us know. It's fine. But also, if you feel there's some questions that you'd like to see us ask, just drop us a message and we'll try and include them in the next interviews. Obviously not the one we've already recorded because we can't
It's in
time
the
travel.
past.
Yeah, it's happened, isn't it? Anyway, well, Mrs. H, do your thing.
Well, thank you for hopping into our bed.